I'm so fortunate to be joined by Heather Fleming, who I have met before through an event here at the Fraser. Heather, welcome. You are the founder of the Custom Wig Company, which is based here in Louisville, correct?
That's correct.
So you've been in the wig business since 2010, or officially you founded the company in 2010, but you've been in the wig business for a lot longer. And I know that you make probably a tremendous number of Santa beards and wigs, in addition to things for cosplayers and reenactors, as well as theater troupes. How did you get into making wigs?
I was a graduate student at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign in 2002, and I was in the costume technology program, which is everything that is not design related. So the construction of garments, the construction of accessories like hats uh, and modification of those things, and hair. And I was very fortunate to be assigned an assistantship in the wig studio, and that was just random chance. That was an opening. They put me in there. There was no like no sort of assessment of what that would be like a thing I wanted to learn. And I mean, I wanted to learn everything, so that was very cool to me. And so I was very lucky to get that assistantship, and it put me on the track of it. And that turned out to be a really good thing for me because not only did I love doing wigs, it turned out I was very bad at sewing garments. So had I not found my niche with wigs and hair, I don't know, I don't know what my career in the theater would have looked like for those years. Because I, like I said, I turned out not to be that great at putting garments together or using sewing machines. Um, so that was the beginning of it. And when I left school in 2004, I went straight to a job at a theater in Virginia as their wig designer, and that was pretty great. It was a great fit. I had a really good time there, and that's where it all started, really.
That's amazing. And here, did you work at all here in Louisville before founding the company? Are you from Louisville originally?
I'm not. I'm from Central Illinois, actually,
Okay.
originally. And I moved here in 2008 to work at Actors Theater. So I
Okay.
actually took the job there, in running their wig studio, and worked there for 4 years. And there was overlap between that and my freelance work that eventually turned into Custom Wig Company. I was approached initially by some Santas in 2008 who said, we really want to have well-made wigs and beards. We can't find those. No one's making them and offering them. Is that something you'd be willing to do? And I said, sure, yeah, let's try that and see. And that started the process of sort of learning, okay, what do these need to be made like? Because at that point I had only done theater wigs, and wigs that you make for theater that go on stage are different than wigs that you make for someone who's going to be dressed as Santa interacting with people on
Sure.
a very a close and sort of improvisational basis. And so I had to sort of develop that and go, okay, well, we got to make things more dense or thicker, or just make some changes to make them work for those guys. And it was very cool to sort of start figuring that out.
That's awesome. So Santa requests from Santa's really led to the business, which is not only Santa stuff, but you do a lot of Santa stuff. Is Santa your number one customer, I guess?
It's probably an even split these days. I mean, that was where it all started. That was me sort of going, I can make wigs for people outside of theater, and it was definitely Santa's at first. But very quickly, historical reenactors started reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I need something that can help me recreate either a specific individual from history or just a general time period." And but also cosplayers, and eventually wigs for ventriloquist figures and
Oh,
dolls actually became another part of our niche. So those are kind of our main groups that we do now. It's sort of evolved that. So it's about an even split these
okay.
days between cosplay, historical, and Santas, with the doll slash event things thrown in, and then we do an occasional theater build for a theater or anything like that. I don't do shows anymore, but we do builds for productions or
Yeah.
single pieces or things like that.
So do you, when you're out, do you go to the mall, or you're going to your regular ventriloquist show? Do you encounter your beards in the wild in real life and
I
feel
don't think I've ever seen
inspired?
one unexpectedly. I don't think I've ever just been, out somewhere and said, "Oh my goodness, is that, is that one of ours?" That's funny though. It would be funny if that happened. I think it's always been something where I've known, okay, we're going to go to see somebody perform or see something where we know it's going to be our work. So we've already known that. I
Sure,
don't think it's ever been a
sure.
surprise, although I hope that does happen someday.
But your Santa beards are all over the world, right? And your wigs as
They are.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, they're all over the world. We ship worldwide.
that's amazing. So, next to Santa, is there a number two that you'd be like, yes, this is a clear, we've made more of these than anything else?
It really is probably an even split between cosplay and historical. I don't know that one of them has the next sort of ranking in terms of just volume we do. I
Uh-huh.
think it's probably evenly split between those two niches. But so much depends too on, say, if like when the new Game of Thrones series dropped,
Right.
that obviously that raised the inquiries from the cosplay community, because that was, new content, new
Yeah.
characters, people were wanting to work on those, and so it's also a little bit driven by external events too, and sort
Sure.
of interest, and so
Sure.
that's always interesting as well, to try to anticipate, okay, so this new series is coming out, what's that going to mean for potentially people being interested in commissioning pieces inspired by that.
Sure. Yeah. I guess this was a year of Targaryen hair then.
We definitely got a lot of inquiries for sure.
Do you have any? I know that with all the historical stuff, I was looking on your blog, which is super interesting. I highly recommend folks going to customwigcompany.com, clicking over to the blog, because there's fascinating insight on the process. And I know that you do a lot of historical stuff, and I mean, hair is such a very specific thing by time period and all of that. And wigs were a big part of fashion. Um, it's an old business. People have been making wigs. I don't know how long, you probably do, but for a very long time. Do you feel a connection to the past in that way? And if so, like, have you ever had the opportunity? Do you like go to a museum and have the opportunity to see historical pieces? Is that something that's ever crossed your life?
I've never gotten to see an extant historical wig, something like, say, from the 18th century in person, and
Mhm.
I would love to at some point. I've never had that chance. I did see at the Cincinnati Art Museum a few years ago. They had a Victorian hairwork exhibit, which was sort of wig adjacent in some ways, just
Yeah,
from the standpoint that it uses hair as its
yeah,
medium,
yeah,
and that was very cool to see. And they had a really wonderful collection of pieces, and just it was just really interesting to sit there and go, other people took hair and they did this with it,
yeah,
and it's also so fine and so detailed, and such an amazing thing to look at, say, this little rosette, and think that's made of strands of hair.
yeah.
And so in some ways, that was very interesting, because it was sort of just this almost inverse of taking hair and making it into a wig. It's like they're you know it was, so that was very cool. I would love to be able to see some excellent pieces in real life someday, though. That would be something that would be high on my list of things to do for sure.
Yeah, we actually have a Victorian era hair wreath. It's on our
Mm.
second floor, and it is one of my favorite things to show people because it's beautiful. It's so ornate. There's so
Yeah.
many different techniques involved. I mean, it's really, really staggering. And people are just like, yeah, that's a really pretty wreath. And then you figure out what it's made out of.
Right. Like,
And
it is,
and you
isn't it?
can
Guess
watch
guess
their
what?
mind glow,
Guess what? That was a
which is
piece that was made of hair and made to honor someone and keep their memory close. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
fascinating.
a it is.
So, my favorite wig story. Did you happen to see the Lincoln movie? From I don't know, a decade ago or something with
The one with
Daniel
Liam
Day
Neeson.
Lewis.
Oh, definitely. I did not. I remember when it came out. I never seen it. It's on my list, but my
Okay,
list is
it's
very
a good
long.
movie. It's a good movie. Yeah, it is very long. You're right. There's a character who's a real life person who was in his cabinet, Thaddeus Stevens, that Tommy Lee Jones played, and Tommy Lee Jones had this notoriously bad wig, and people were like calling it out, like, why is he wearing such a terrible wig? And the truth is that the real guy, Thaddeus Stevens, wore a horrible wig. Like everyone knew it was a terrible wig. Like it had the same length all the way around, so it didn't matter. you know. And very famously, it's an apocryphal story, but it gets told often that that was a time you've got the wreath. People use hair for all sorts of things. There's all sorts of clippings that exist in the world where people would take a clipping of someone's hair, ask for a clipping. It was okay. It was like an autograph. And he gave a speech, and a lady approached him and said, "Can I can I have a clipping of your hair, not knowing that he lived with alopecia. And he said, here, just take the whole thing, and gave her the wig. So that wig, I think, is in a museum, I believe in Georgia or something. I saw it, I was tracking it down, or, just kind of experience, but it's such a funny story to me. I love telling it.
It is
Is
fun.
there a favorite time period for you? I mean, I know like Santa and theater kind of have, they push you in directions, but I bet you're interested in fashions of different eras.
Definitely. And actually, costume history was the thing that first drew me to pursuing theatrical costuming. Originally, it was actually I just found it very interesting to research how people have dressed over the millennia. It's just sort of, and how it's evolved and changed. And so, I would say as a wig person, it's really hard not to say 18th century, because that was an era in which people were wearing deliberate overt wigs. They were meant to be perceived as a wig. There was no pretense that, oh, this is my hair. I mean, they were almost more of a hat than a wig, and that's the way they were used and worn. And it's just, and they were so. I mean, everyone thinks, I think of the Marie Antoinette with the ship in her wig,
Sure,
and
yeah.
that level of drama. And I will say, we've never recreated that. People always ask, have you ever made a wig with a ship in it or a bird cage? We've actually never had the chance to do that. I think it would be fun just from a structural thing of trying
Yeah,
to figure out the engineering. But even just the more sort of simple, the wigs that are only 6 to 8 inches tall instead of 14 inches tall. It's There's just a structure and a drama to them that I enjoy. So I would have to say that's probably just the top sort of thing, because it's just it's a project. It's a you can really sink your teeth into it. But I will say, as a wig maker, what has always been more satisfying to me is making a wig for a scenario in which it's really important that people not realize it's a wig.
mm-hmm.
Because I felt like that when I was still doing theater shows, the biggest compliment would be somebody would see a show and they would say, like, oh, I saw that your name was in the program. I didn't see any wigs in the show though. I was like, good, good. I'm so glad. That means I did my job. Like, in most cases, like if you could see the wig and said, oh, that wig looks so good, I would think, oh, okay, well, you shouldn't have noticed they were wearing it. I didn't nail it then. Okay. Um, so honestly, there's a certain sort of going, I need to be so imperceptible in my work that this is just on this person and no one's thinking about it, including the person wearing it. That was
Sure.
always the thing too. And that's still true with our work. Most of the time, in most cases, we don't want a Santa to be thinking about the wig and beard that he's
Yeah,
wearing. We want him to just be in the moment doing his work. We don't want the families or whoever they're interacting with to be thinking, oh, look at that nice beard. Doesn't
sure.
that look nice? They did a really good job with that. Again, because it takes them out of the moment. It's all about providing somebody with a tool that lets them go do their work, whatever that, or their hobby, or whatever they're trying to do. Our goal is to say, hey, here's this thing to help you, and it should go away when you are doing your thing. You shouldn't be thinking about it. We shouldn't be thinking about it. So I feel like that's the thing that's really satisfying.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So in the end, like your work, you're invisible because what you're creating, you're trying to project that reality and just
Yeah.
create that. Well, then this is a great opportunity to shine a light on you now, because there's no beard that's hiding. There's no fake hair anywhere here. Uh,
As far as
so
you
if
know.
it, oh well, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. That would be awesome. Do you, if people want to learn more, where would you send them?
I would send them to our website, customwigcompany.com. It has information about all the different kinds of pieces we build, some examples of our work in our client galleries. The blog you mentioned that we do try to post. I won't say we post regularly, but we do try to keep updated. And mostly it's instructional content, and a lot of it is aimed at our clients. It's how to help them learn how to use their wigs and facial hair, how to care for them once they have them, because there's a little bit of a learning curve with it, with the pieces, and we want to make sure our clients are feel really comfortable saying, I'm taking this on, I have everything I need to know, or we're pointing them where to go to find that information. But there are also things we dig into some of the details of building pieces, or doing profiles that way. There's a couple posts about how we researched 18th century wig building techniques so that we could start to produce 18th century well, wigs based on 18th century construction methods and materials. And that's a thing that we do. And that was a fun project to have to dig in and research on those techniques, because the techniques have been around for centuries. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it's not new. And so in some ways it's not even reinventing the wheel. It's going back and figuring out, okay, how was this done? And, or at least our best guess at it, our best researched guess on how that works. So
Yeah.
that's where I would send people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much. And to everyone out there, if you're walking around the malls, you might bump into Heather's work, but you probably won't even know because it's going to look so real. Heather Fleming, thank you so much. And oh, if you ever do make that Marie Antoinette wig, we'll have to do a follow-up. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.